Kevin Miller in the morning, blessed to be a part of your day on KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And don't forget, coming up Thursday morning, beginning at 6 o'clock, your chance to win tickets to see the WWE for free by listening to me on 580 AM, 107.5 FM. We are so psyched to do that. Thank you, Thursdays, coming up 6 a.m. You don't want to miss that. Joining us now is Rachel Bovard to talk a little bit about sanctuary cities and the upcoming immigration legislation. She is a senior policy director at the Conservative Partnership. We appreciate her joining us today. Rachel, thank you for joining us.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
So we take a look at sanctuary cities. It's strange. The president says they're illegal. They are illegal. And yet, particularly on the West Coast, whether it's Seattle or Los Angeles or even smaller cities, these cities still exist, and they tell the president, they tell the country, you're not the boss of us.
That's absolutely right, and that's why when Trump took office, one of the first things he did was sign an executive order that said, look, cities who openly flout immigration law are no longer going to get money devoted to enforcing immigration law. Pretty clear and dry. But, of course, immediately challenged in court where the issue sits today. And as a result, these cities are still getting money, and that's a big problem for a lot of voters. And at this point, one that Congress needs to step in and address.
Well, that's an interesting perspective with Congress. They say a lot when they want the job when they're campaigning, and yet they don't really do a lot. What's the mood in Congress? And I do hear we have some legislation coming up this week. I mean, I think that has to do with the Dreamers and such. But why the conundrum on immigration enforcement and reform?
It does seem to be one of those key promises that they all make on the campaign trail and then do not address when they come to Congress. Congress just missed a key opportunity to address this in March when they passed that $1.3 billion omnibus spending bill. They could have addressed it at that time. They chose not to. They're going to have another chance coming up. This go around. They have to pass another series of funding bills by September 30th. They really need to get their act together because this issue polls incredibly well. It's one the president promised he would enforce, and he's done his part. It's unfortunately held up in the courts. But many of these guys ran on this issue as well. So it's now just becoming sort of an albatross until they deal with it. And so we're hopeful that they will in these coming months.
Well, easier said than done. But let's go back to these sanctuary cities. And they're touting not working with the federal government, which I don't know. You go back to your history or civics classes. It's the reverse federalism, I guess.
Yeah, and to be clear, states can do whatever they want. That's our federalist system. But when they are getting money from the federal government that has specific criteria, right, that says if you receive this money, you must do X, Y, and Z, you're entering into that contract. It's not okay then for the state to say, well, I'm going to take the money and ignore all the criteria. And that is, I think, what really Trump is getting at. And his Justice Department are saying, look, if you're not going to follow the law, we're not going to give you the money to enforce the law that you're clearly not doing. And that's a real problem I think Republicans have been saying for years they want to address. We're obviously waiting for them to do that. But in many cases, you see California in particular is a big sanctuary jurisdiction. Virginia, parts of Northern Virginia are as well. And they are broadcasting the fact that they do not participate with ICE in issues like sex trafficking or even opioid smuggling. Like they are so concerned about, the ICE having jurisdiction over the illegal immigrants within their borders that they are actively prohibiting law enforcement investigations from going forward on really key subjects.
Right. Again, you have people committing these crimes, and you have big cities saying we're not going to help the feds curb crimes which impact the citizens of those cities.
No, that's right. And I think it's reached sort of an appalling level. I mean, you saw the mayor of Oakland not too long ago actually warn the city that ICE was about to perform a raid, and as a result, she gave criminal illegal aliens warning to avoid arrest. The Center for Immigration Studies has estimated that since 2014, sanctuary jurisdictions have allowed the continued release of 10,000 criminal illegal aliens. And that puts not just the city at risk, but the entire country at risk. And so this is now becoming not just an issue of flouting federal law, but an actual issue of safety. And so the stakes are getting higher, and it's something that, if the courts are going to hold up and prohibit what the executive can do, it becomes incumbent on Congress to act as quickly as they can.
Makes you wonder how dangerous these cities have become.
Well, I mean, this was the issue of Kate Steinle that we saw a couple of years ago, just walking along a pier when an illegal immigrant fired a gun and killed her. I mean, and then was again released because he was in a sanctuary jurisdiction. This is becoming the norm, and that's a very concerning statistic for a lot of people who care not only about secure borders, but about national sovereignty and the rule of law. This is getting out of hand, and I think Trump's efforts to stop it are admirable, but the courts are really have him on lockdown. And again, Congress really needs to step up to the plate, as they've been promising to do for years.
Well, that comes down to it. Is there anybody in Congress that's actually doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Well, I think, it remains to be seen in the sense that we're seeing these funding bills begin to be drafted now. We don't know what's in them yet. We haven't seen the text. But it's really incumbent upon the leadership, right? The leadership in the House has to say, and the Senate has to say, this is a priority for us. This needs to be in this legislation. Or if we're not going to put it in the base text, we're going to allow amendments to be offered to do so. And that's something we haven't seen so far this year from either body, and that's a problem. So Republicans ran on this issue. This is a promise they need to follow through on. They haven't followed through on many promises this year, but this is one that's kind of a little bit more pressing, I would argue, than a lot of others.
Right. It's the same old, if you will. Anything else we should be looking out for, and particularly with these sanctuary cities, to stop these renegades for feeling so emboldened to take the federal money and then, not obey the federal laws or help the feds curb real. And we're not talking about people that run stoplights or, jaywalkers. We're talking about real dangerous people.
No, that's right. And I really do think we need to start holding Congress accountable for these crimes, these grossing crimes that we're seeing at the state level, because this is really Congress's failure at this point. They've been promising to kind of cut off this money for decades almost, and they have time and time again been presented with opportunities to do so and failed. And these are Republican majorities. So I do think that the accountability needs to be placed there. President Trump has done what he can do. And until the courts speak, his hands are tied. So I do think in these upcoming spending fights, this is going to be a critical issue. And for people that care about this issue, this is the time to weigh in with your congressman.
Well, and we appreciate that. What about your group? If we want more information or want to support your group, what can we do, Rachel?
You can find us online at conservativepartnership.org, and also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, where we post updates about all these issues on a pretty regular basis.
Well, we appreciate your work, and watch out for those sanctuary cities, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. What a nice young lady. We appreciate her starting us up on the right side. Kevin Miller with you here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget, coming up June 23rd, it is the Boise Music Festival. And that will be with Robin Thicke and Echo Smith and so many people coming up. We'll give you a chance to win those tickets, probably late this week, early next week. We've got the WWE, your chance to win Thursday morning as well. A few other things going on, but once again, I think it's time to take a look at a topic that fascinates us and will impact us for the rest of our lives. And that's immigration. And that's people moving into the Treasure Valley, particularly people from California, changing the entire dynamic of the Gem State. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe you've listened to the stations in Los Angeles or San Francisco, and you're thinking, gosh, this guy, Kevin Miller, just bags on us all the time. I wish he would be more tolerant, more accepting. I don't know, this week in Boise, they're having Pride Fest. I don't know if we have California Fest, where we celebrate all the people moving in from California. But this is a topic that I think whether you're from California, hate California, love California, you're going to be all about this.
There are now enough petition signatures to put the proposal to split California into 3 states on the ballot in November. Northern California would be cut off just north of Fresno. Coastal California would extend to Los Angeles as its own state and would spin inland. And Southern California, including San Diego, would become the 3rd state. The last time an existing state was divided was in 1863, when West Virginia was created. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
So there we have it. The crazy, wacky, zany Californians, they want to split themselves up into 3. We'll talk a little bit about that, and can California be saved? What's that? Should we go to California? What would we do there? Interview people about the high cost of living, the libs running wild? What would be the purpose of going to California? We have enough California coming here, right? We'll talk about that coming up. But first, let's go to Mountain Home, home of Mountain Force Air Force Base, and Pete on 580 AM, 107.5 FM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning, Kevin. In the interest of full disclosure, I escaped California in 2004.
Well, welcome to America, sir.
Oh, my God, it felt so good crossing the Snake River. I was singing Free at Last, Free at Last.
Free at last.
Anyway, I had a thought on the prison situation for Idaho. Put a great big, really, really secure fence around the Hewlett-Packard campus. Put the nonviolent inmates in there, and then they can cut the grass.
And, you know, you're the second person that said that. And I had a gentleman on Facebook that reached out to me. I didn't give him credit for that. But the HP campus got a lot of empty buildings. You've got a lot of...
Fill them up.
Fill them up with the prisons.
Yeah, turn them into dorms.
I don't know about that. Actually, that was John. So, John, thank you for that. Pete, what do you make of the prison situation? We've heard rumors that if you go to prison in Idaho, it is not a happy time.
Well, you know, I don't know that it's supposed to be a happy time. It should not be a violent time.
Shouldn't be a happy day.
It should just be something that makes you not want to go back.
Right. But, I mean, the Gladiator School, the private prisons, nobody was really held accountable for that.
No, they weren't. And that's definitely, I think, that's a serious problem for the state, not having... The fact that somebody's in prison doesn't mean that you get to injure them or turn them into, like they said, gladiators or anything like that. That's, it's not a place that they should want to come back to, but you don't do that by revoking all of their human rights.
Well, and then we're sending them to Texas.
Yeah, I don't know how we save money sending them out of state to a private institution. That seems a little weird.
Wonder who's getting the commission on that.
Yeah, somebody somewhere in the state government ought to be. Yeah, who approved that and who selected that private commission or that private prison?
Yeah.
Oh, and I would like to add one comment as far as parades go. It's interesting that the Idaho statesperson, I'm being politically correct here, has never, since I've lived here, been able to cover Air Force Appreciation Day parade here in Mountain Home. It's never been covered in the paper. And I finally figured out why. It's when you get to exit 90, and the paper manages to cover the sheep thing up in Sun Valley and the media moguls and all that. And I figured it's because you get to exit 95 on the freeway, and you turn left, and that takes you up to Sun Valley. And to get to Mountain Home, they'd have to turn right, and they can't do that.
Well, and you go past the big tank there, but that's a very brilliant point, Pete. So maybe
they're just psychologically incapable of making a right turn.
Yeah, but maybe you'll come out on the ledge with me. On one hand, we have the Pride Fest that gets covered.
Oh yeah,
and there'll be thousands of people. You have the gun people that are never covered. Yeah,
and the God and Country people are never covered.
And then you have the Air Force that's never covered. So,
which is probably the biggest parade in Idaho as far as numbers of people in it, numbers of people watching. Yeah, it's interesting what the Idaho statesperson Well, I mean, come on. All they are really, they're like the rest of the print media in this country and the three networks. They're just the Democrat propaganda ministry.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But back to my point last hour, you can't really say that Idaho is not tolerant because you have Pride Fest and everything else. So I think we get a bum rap.
And what gets me, I don't care what you do in your home. I just don't want you requiring me to endorse that lifestyle if I disagree with it.
And I don't want to be attacked for not endorsing that lifestyle.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. If I have to be tolerant, and basically, I'm a member of what I call the Luther Party, leave us the hell alone. And it gets me when somebody wants me to be tolerant of whatever they're doing, but they aren't tolerant of my views. So I had a bunch of cards made up. I think I mentioned this earlier. They have an American flag on them, and they say, "I would like to apologize to all those I have not yet offended. Please be patient."
Exactly. Let me apologize in advance. All right, Pete. God bless. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So, what do you make of this? California being split in three? Oh, wow. Somebody's a little upset about my ruthless comments. We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here. So, It's funny, and it proves my point. The other day, last hour, we were talking about Pride Fest. And I said, look, I'm going to go out on a limb. That's what you do when you're a talk show host, and say, is this really necessary? Idaho is the most tolerant state in the country. And again, whether it's add the words or anything else, in my opinion, I don't think that's necessary. And again, you don't see anybody else having this type of parade and acceptance in the Treasure Valley, and you have no one locally that will come out and say these rather boring statements that I've said. But again, proving my point, and it's what Pete just said a moment ago, that if you say, look, I don't agree with this, people have a right to do what they want to do, but it's not my thing, you will be attacked. You will be targeted. And this morning, we're already targeted by someone posting on social media. We'll get to their comments in a minute, and they're entitled to their opinion. We're also entitled to react to them at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And again, my comments in the grand scheme of things, rather boring and really being on the fence. But when you strike a nerve with people, they decide to lash out. And instead of engaging in a debate or discussion at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, they seek to run you. And here's the other one. And I have to be careful with this because, again, and by the way, I'm just echoing the comments of Brad Little. I'm echoing, well, not about Pride Fest, but about of Raul Labrador, of Tommy Ahlquist. Remember, they ran on traditional families, correct? That's what they ran on during the election, where, I believe marriage is defined between a man and a woman. And I'm sure that if I'm misquoting their campaign literature, that they will let me know about that of their people. And, it's funny. We have these issues. And so here we have this issue. Now, I would argue at 580-5436, again, it's a small part of the Treasure Valley, Cecil Andrus Park, right by the Capitol. You're not closing down the entire city, but you have the city celebrating this. What if you don't agree with Pride Fest? Isn't the whole city endorsing this exclusionary? And shouldn't you have a right to say, not my thing? Not my thing. So we have a young man here, looks very intelligent, writes in complete sentences, which is more than I could say for myself. I'm so disappointed at Kevin Miller's ruthless comments made this morning regarding the Pride Festival. Now, again, my comments are hardly ruthless, but we'll continue. I found his blanket statement over Idaho's acceptance of the gay community extremely distasteful. Pride is to celebrate the accomplishments that have been made, not to demand more rights. I don't know about that one. You've got a lot of add the words people, this, that, and the other. The only positive thing that came from his segment is that I didn't hear anyone call in and join his conversation. Maybe because after hearing his multiple failed attempts to obtain a reaction, I quit listening. But you did quit to go put it on our Facebook page, right? Was his attempt for increased ratings or to have a controversial conversation? Whatever the case may be, I'll be switching morning radio stations. Well, Brady, I'm sorry you feel that way, but part of the conversation of talk radio is to talk about things that may or may not be uncomfortable. And there are people here that find this exclusionary. Traffic and weather together at KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely. All right, Patriot Ray and Jesse, hang on. We've got to go to Eben Brown, plus Maggie O'Mara, plus you. But I do want to get your reaction to this at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Are you endorsing Pride Fest, or do you find it exclusionary based on your beliefs? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
And coming up, Patriot Ray, Archie, and Jesse. Before that, we go to Fox News Radio's Eben Brown. Always a pleasure to have Eben on, talking about the big issues of the day. Eben, before we get rolling, though, how goes it in the life of the big city reporter from the Southern Bureau, I guess we would say, from Fox News? I don't think anybody's more Southern than you.
I don't believe so, no. But like much of Florida, I'm really from New York originally, so. The other half of Florida being from Cuba, of course.
Exactly. And then you have that little ounce of happiness, Floribama, but I digress. America is looking to find people cheating on being a citizen.
Well, the United States government is now going to be looking into people who have already become naturalized, but perhaps maybe their paperwork wasn't on the up and up, or there's reason to believe that they lied in some form with regard to their information or why they were becoming U.S. citizens. And if they can find people who, in fact, did submit false paperwork or commit some kind of forgery or lied outright, they could be sanctioned for it with the possibility of the very rare punishment of denaturalization, meaning that their newly found American citizenship would be taken away from them.
I don't know how you would really describe that. Has that ever really happened before at a large-scale level?
I think it's a very rare thing that I couldn't even tell you a case where it's happened. But it could happen, and the U.S. government, basically an office of the Justice Department, is now saying that if they find out that someone has egregiously falsified their way to becoming a citizen, and probably because they did it to avoid justice somewhere else, that they could lose that American citizenship. I think each case is going to be taken on a one-by-one basis, and depending upon the severity of those fabrications, what the punishment would be. But they have said that they would not stop at denaturalization, that they would make use of that tool if they had to.
Yeah, and you really have to wonder how they're going to find out unless somebody gives them a tip.
More than that, I mean, there has to be like a significant paper trail that this person lied or was somehow or other untruthful or committed some kind of forgery with regard to their paperwork, and it really does rise to that level of someone who is just really trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes. I don't think people who perhaps maybe fibbed in order to escape persecution in a way back in their home nation are really going to face that kind of total punishment. But look, it's really up to the discretion of law enforcement.
Eben Brown, we appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
You got it.
Fox News Radio's Eben Brown with Kevin Miller on 580 AM 107.5 FM, KIDO Talk Radio.
Tommy Ahlquist has removed language from his campaign website promising to fight to protect Idaho's right to define marriage. Ahlquist is the only gubernatorial site to include a resolution to protect the sanctity of marriage as between one man and one woman. The Boise businessman said last week it was possibly time to change that promise. His updated campaign website still says he believes marriage should be between a man and a woman, but no longer promises to fight to uphold that definition.
And there we have it from our own Maggie O'Mara, Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio, and defining the role of the family and defining Pride Fest that's in town. Is it welcoming or is it exclusionary based on the fact that you don't believe, you may not believe, and may not be down with the pride? Let's go to Patriot Ray with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Patriot Ray.
Good morning, Kevin. So this morning early, I was perusing my website and I came across an article. It was actually a video of a group of people who went into a gay cafe to have some coffee. And because earlier they were passing out literature away from the business, not in the business, that talked about Christianity and that gay was not absolutely correct in the Christian society, and the owner of that company threw them out, berated them, said he had the right to be offended by their literature. He had the right to be offended by them because they were Christians, and that, get that, and he very many angry words in foul language, and threw them out. And they asked him if they were doing this because they were Christians, and he said, absolutely, you offend me, get out of my place. And yet nothing will happen to him, but a caterer or a bakery politely says that they did not want to participate in making a wedding cake, gets destroyed and thrown out of business. Not thrown out of business, but driven out of business because of all the vitriol that came to them. So it's a two-way street that's only one way, their way, or you don't get to do anything. So, yeah, I'm a little offended by the gay situation, and I guess I don't have a right to be offended, but I am. And all they wanted to do in here today was say they wanted to come out of the closet and just be part of society. No, they want to take over, and they want to be able to have everything their way only. So the gay prides, the parades and all that, I'm sorry, they can have them. I will not participate in them. I will not be a part of it. And I still love them as individuals, but I do not care for their lifestyle. And I don't like it thrown in my face because I don't agree with them. And they have a right to be offended, but we don't. So, Kevin, stay fired up. Keep doing what you're doing because you're a great man, a great individual who tells the truth and goes out and does the best you can. I pray for everybody that they will be forthright in their Christianity and stand up for what is right and stand up and support people who do not live the same lifestyle as we do, but at least respect them and don't berate them like this individual did.
Right. I mean, he's mad at me because I said, what if you don't agree? Isn't this whole thing exclusionary?
Well, yeah, I guess it is for us, but not for them. I mean, it's amazing to me that you can say you want to be accepted and you want to accept everybody else, but you don't. You don't accept everybody else. If you don't agree with them, you're on a big list, and you can be driven out of business, or you could have people just say foul things to you, and that's okay for them to do, but all you try to do is live up to your religion. So I don't understand people and their feelings of fair and equal as long as it's just they're fair. They're equal.
That's very fair
Stay
for them.
fired up, buddy.
All right, Patriot Ray, thank you for the call. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
This ain't the 80s. We ain't down with the ladies. It's 2010. We're down with Kevin Miller and the men.
Before we get to Archie and Caldwell, Jesse in Nampa has been very patient. Wanted to talk about California with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jesse.
Hey, Kevin. How are you doing this morning?
Not bad. Not bad. Just trying to wake everybody up, stir everybody up, and get some conversation going.
You know, I originally called in to talk about California, and I think I'll get to that. But something you were just saying about the tolerance of the LGBT community. I am originally from San Bernardino, California. So when Prop 8 really, started to make some noise years ago, I was appalled to see that if you had a Prop 8 sticker, your windows were smashed, your car was keyed, the intolerance really shown about. And honestly, it makes me sad because I know some great people that are homosexuals. I don't particularly subscribe or agree with it, but it makes me sad that they've been lied to and just, fed this lie of intolerance, of tolerance through intolerance. But I think that perfectly fits into what I was going to say about California. I honestly think this might be the best thing that's ever happened to California. I came across this today in my Fox News updates when I woke up, and I recognized the counties that would be part of the proposed Southern California are the conservative counties of California. So you got San Bernardino, Orange County, San Diego. And if that were to happen, if this split were to happen, which they've been talking about it for 20 years and no one's ever really made a move for it, you would split the conservatives out, you'd split the crazies and Hollywoods out, and then you would have the different crazies up in Northern California. But I think if this could happen, Southern California might become a nice place to live again.
Well, that would help us deal with our population exploding. Back to Jesse, back to the Prop 8 thing. As someone who didn't live in California but watched it, I mean, from what I understand, you had people that would go into churches. Of course, the Obama administration targeted people that contributed to Prop 8. And, the whole idea of tolerance, you're going to go into somebody's church and protest, you're going to smash their windshields because they're using their constitutional rights. It's absurd. Of course, those stories are never covered by the news media.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the biasness where you would have the smallest thing. Take the baker. I can't remember right off the top of my head where he was from, but he just didn't want to make a wedding cake for a gay couple. That's fine. You have something small like that, but yet you have these massive protests and this violence happening, and I don't see anything here.
And right, it's more like promotion as opposed to reporting.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of during that Prop 8 time that was actually televised, and this is because it pretty much blocked the streets in the middle of L.A., is when they surrounded the temple in L.A. And they surrounded the temple, and of course the temple people came out and they locked their gates. And I found some sort of hilarity in there. I am LDS, and when they went and rioted around the temple, and I don't know if you remember this, there happened to be several Samoan and Tongan wards inside the temple at that time, and they came out and were. It was just kind of a funny scene to watch, but that's the only televised thing I can think of from that point of view, just because it happened in the middle of downtown.
Jesse, thanks for the thoughts, and great to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up next, back to California. Should it be split up in three? And the idea of Pride Fest, welcoming or exclusionary? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget, Thursday morning, your chance to see the WWE for free just by listening 6 to 9. We will be giving away tickets to the SmackDown Heatwave show. That will be Friday at Taco Bell Arena. And if you're fired up and want to check that out, we want to make sure that you get to go for free just by listening to us. And we, again, appreciate you listening to KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Fox News on the radio. A few other things coming up here. Back to this issue involving California on whether or not California should be split into three. Have you heard about this story? It's going to be at the top of the ballot coming up this November.
There are now enough petition signatures to put the proposal to split California into 3 states on the ballot in November. Northern California would be cut off just north of Fresno. Coastal California would extend to Los Angeles as its own state and would spin inland. And Southern California, including San Diego, would become the 3rd state. The last time an existing state was divided was in 1863, when West Virginia was created. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
Thank you, Gary. Kevin Miller, 580 AM, 107.5 FM. Is it us? Or is it just, maybe it's the water, maybe it's the beach, maybe it's the mountains, maybe it's the libs, maybe it's the progressives. What really do they do in California that they're so unhappy? Now, I get the taxes, I get the liberal intolerance for conservatism, I get the sanctuary cities, I get everything else, but is it really that bad, California, that you want to split your state up into 3? And I can remember, and I'm sure you remember, the age of Reagan, the age of, the Golden State, where everything was wonderful. People from around the world wanted to go to California, whether it was to be a movie star like Aaron Paul, whether it was to be a bodybuilder like Arnold Schwarzenegger, whether it was to live the American dream. Everybody wanted to go to California because California was perfect. And I don't know if it was the streets of San Francisco. I don't know really where, or, like a Star Wars reference, the Sith took over and it became so bad. Pete Wilson, you had all these propositions, everything became so polarized. And now you have people saying, well, we're going to split up into 3. As Gary just said, that hasn't happened since the bleeping Civil War. And, sometimes the smack the multiple people from California, because to me, if you're going to live in Idaho, you should have Idaho plates. What are you holding on to? What are you holding on to? Be proud of where you live. But I couldn't imagine, and I've moved around quite a bit. I'm sure you've moved around. Maybe you have, and if you haven't, that is awesome that you haven't had to go through that ordeal. Hey, I'm going to meet a new person. I'm the new person in the neighborhood, right? Think about having to leave a place that you were born, your parents were born, your grandparents were born, just because of liberal progressive policies, the intolerance of the left. And now it's so crazy there that they're going to split the thing in 3? And that's a legitimate story on the ballot. Again, going back to the Civil War, that hasn't happened. That's one issue. Another issue is, and I don't know if this really has to do with California, but this morning today, 4:45, I'm driving around, and on Old State Street, a guy with a 2C plate comes up, huge truck, tailgates me, zooms in the left lane, zooms out, and keeps going. Now, I don't know if, people say, well, 2C this, 2C that. I don't know if he was a native of the 2C or if we imported him from somewhere else, but this crazy aggressive driving, it's just insane. And as the summer continues to get hotter, and by the way, I'm so grateful that we haven't had the triple digits yet. Tempers are going to flare. People are going to act even more nitwitty. And common courtesy that we were taught as kids, that we try to impart as parents and grandparents, goes out the window. Whether it's social media, whether it's too much cholesterol, too much caffeine, I don't know. Is it too much to ask that people behave appropriately? Is it too much of a broad statement to say, well, that's one county in Idaho, got to watch out for them? Or is it the people coming in from out of state? And to our great friend Jim in Middleton at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Not bad. And you?
Just right, sir. Anyway, I know that you've adapted very well in Idaho, being a big city guy, which I was at one time also. And you obviously appreciate what Idaho has, and you're fighting hard to maintain that, as I am. And as you know, I was from California also, and that's kind of a cuss word here in Idaho, but, there's a lot of good Californians moving here. But my wife and I, Angela, who you know, we had a great business in California. We were both born and raised there. I grew up in the city, moved to Northern California, and had a business there for 17 years. And wonderful lifestyle. We loved everything there, except the politics, the progressive bureaucracy. It just chased us out of there, and it's very, very sad what California is doing to working people. And all those that are moving here, I pray that they maintain the integrity of what Idaho is and becomes a part of that. Very important.
Jim, thank you for listening. You have a great day, sir.
I will, Kevin. You too. Take care now.
You too. Our great friend Jim in Middleton. Kevin Miller, Fox News next on 580 AM, 107.5 FM, KIDO Talk Radio.